Our candidate forums brought to you by Tana Bells and Thief River Falls Radio.
Thank you, Terry. And again, welcome to our candidate forum. And as Terry mentioned today, our focus on the mayor's race in the city of Thief River Falls. And we do have in studio the incumbent Mayor Brian Homer and challenger Alderman Award number 3, Mike Lawrenson, joining us. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, let's start off as we have each day this week, and we'll start, Mike, with you. An opportunity for you to tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself. Outside of politics, who is Mike Lawrenson?
Mike Lawrenson. I have born and raised in the Thief River Falls area, and have been a citizen of Thief River Falls for a little over 15 years. My wife and I have 11 children, and no, that wasn't error there. We do have 11 children, 6 boys, 5 girls, and I've grown to love Thief River Falls. I've been raising our children here. I am currently a manager at DigiKey IT department. Outside of that, I spend a lot of time with my family. So,
all right, Brian Homer, introduce yourself if you would.
Well, my name is Brian Homer. I've been mayor for the last 10 years and honored to serve in that position and live in the community with my wife Heidi. I have 3 offspring that were all prowlers, and from there I own Michael's Meats. It's getting into that venison season, so it's getting busy time, so you see a lot of people, but that's where I reside and work. And
all right, good. Again, Mike Lawrenson, the challenger, and Brian Homer, the incumbent, seeking election for the seat of mayor in the city of Thief River Falls. My second question, and again, Mike, to you, why are you running?
Well, I first started to get into the local politics when Roundabout was going to be put in my yard and basically going to be taking one chunk of my garage. And when I was getting the maps, I thought, whoa, wow, this is kind of surprising. This is the very first time I've been told about this. And so I personally felt like I did not have very good representation from my current alderman for the Ward 3. And I felt a little frustrated. And when that position came up, I said, okay, well, I'm going to take this position. And my core goal at that point in time is to try and be a better voice for my constituents and actually reach out to them and walk door to door and start to understand them, understand their needs and so on and so forth. And I looked at the possibility of extending or expanding that and looked towards transitioning into a larger position of mayor, and hence why I elected to transition to that and see what I can do to better my strategies for the rest of the council. So,
all right. The question to you, Mayor Homer, then, was why would you want to be reelected? Why are you running?
Well, back 10 years ago, back when I was elected, there was some chaotic scenes going on within our council, not being able to work together. So I once I was elected, to introduce Robert's Rules of Order so that we can actually get some work done at our meetings. And through them years, it's really transpired to be effective at council meetings. Throughout the time, there's items that have been able to be worked on, a lot of items that would cost our local taxpayers lots of money, and I always felt there was money that was being left on the table outside our community. So I've been very successful at lobbying the state and the federal legislature for bonding money and some earmark money from the federal government to promote some of our projects like the airport and some of the diversionary projects and stuff that we've had over the past years. And I've always wanted to do something with our river and get it cleaned up so it can be usable again. Everybody talks about the recreation it used to be used. So about 8 years ago, I actually went out, took a trip to Washington and promoted this and finally got to the point where we got the Corps of Engineers involved now, and they're doing a study on the basin. We have the Department of Health involved with getting our source water protection done, and there'll be a lot of work to do on that. But that would be a goal to keep working forward to complete some of these bigger issues that are not always so glamorous because they're not really seen, but they are very crucial to the the city and our taxpaying base.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Interesting dynamic when you're talking to candidates who are both already involved in the city, because sometimes when you're a candidate who has not been involved for a long time, you don't have insight into the workings that are going on a little bit behind the scenes. So I'm interested to hear a response on some of these questions that are coming up. And we'll start now with Mayor Homer. The city of Thief River Falls are I think are there 7 or 8 different departments within the city. It's right around there. I don't recall exactly. Are we adequately staffed? Are we understaffed? Are we overstaffed? How do we sit when it comes to a city and our employees?
Well, I'm proud to say that throughout the 10 years, there's been some restructuring of our city staffing to make us more efficient, and throughout that, there's been some people coming and going, but we've been able to hold the employee staffing levels at approximately the same amount, right around that 89, 90 mark. We've seen some staffs disappear. Some of the stuff like our arenas and the park portion of it is been dissolved and reformatted to a state where we have workers that have jobs now 40 hours a week. That's one thing. If we're going to hire an employee, we got to make sure they got 40 hours of work. Otherwise, they need to be a temporary or part-time employee. So it doesn't pay for us to hire somebody for 20 hours, give them 20 hours worth of work and 40 hours worth of pay. So I think we're sitting pretty good. Possibly the only place, and we're constantly evaluated, would be in our public safety realm. But other than that, like I say, we're constantly looking at it as we move forward.
Mike Lawrence, your views on that, on city departments, if we're adequately staffed, understaffed, or do you think overstaffed?
I would agree with Brian on this, is that we're very, very close to where we need to be. I would say we could do some shuffling in certain areas where as long as we're transitioning or focusing on newer technologies and working to be more efficient, we could reduce some headcounts in some areas and move them to other areas where we could actually maybe use a head or two headcount. But again, I think we're pretty aligned, and we're not wanting to make sure the burden is on these taxpayers and keep that number as low as we possibly can. So.
All right, thank you. Well, that kind of leads to the next question, and taxes have been brought up by both of you in various responses here. Can the city, a lot of the city's tax load that changes every year is cost of living or union contracts, things of that nature, employee contracts. Built in, we know that over a period of time, but cost of everything also seems to go up, inflation. What can the city do to maintain that tax load on its residents? And we'll start with you, Mayor Homer.
Well, I'm proud to say that I've been one of the members from the council that go down to the Capitol and have really told our story about how many people actually use our roads and bridges and public services and things that come to our community that are not our local taxpayers and local tax base, which in turn formulates into some of the local government aid that comes back to our cities and counties. And 2 years ago, it was a budget session at the Capitol, and at that time I was the president of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and we were very fortunate. We did get an increase in LGA, and at that point in time, it was right around that $490,000 mark. So it covered a big burden for our citizens, as well as its ongoing money. I wish there was some inflation factored into that. That would help out. But besides just that, just going out and getting grant money and extra aid money and bonding money from the state that helps us with these projects too really reduces the amount of money that our local taxpayers have to put into the coffer so that we can spend some of this. But as we look forward, our budgets are tight. Me and Mike will sit on the budget committee, and we have to look at that constantly and where we can trim anything and look ahead into the future and where we got future spending that sometimes it isn't a one-time spend. It's ongoing spending that you got to worry about. So with that, that's about
Okay.
Very set.
Mr. Lawrenson, your thoughts on the tax strain on the people who live in Thief River Falls?
Well, clearly, if we take a look at one of the larger items that were being hit in our budget would be our Ralph Engelstad Arena. That is a gift that keeps on taking, for lack of better words, but it is a challenge, and I think the bigger focus we have there, and one of the reasons why I voted to actually remove our former management of the Ralph Engelstad Arena was because of the fact that they were not bringing in additional people to support the arena. If the building is going to cost us this much money every year, whether the doors are open or whether they're closed, it's just a fact. Now, if we can open those doors and get individuals to come in and shave down, hundreds of dollars here, thousands of dollars there, it does count up. And, what we see now with our newer management team that's in there, we do see a light at the end of the tunnel to see, okay, great, we can bring this down. Is it going to zero it down? Absolutely not. It's not. But things like that, or the Carnegie Library, which has been a topic of concern as well. What can we do with our team to get individuals in there to rent the space and get that tax burden off of the city? Because that's a bigger concern we have as well. So.
Well, we're just gonna roll into the bigger question, and it has to do with the Ralph Engelstad Arena, and a fantastic gift when it was given, and everybody says hindsight's 20/20 and whatever, but it was no question a fantastic gift. Everybody, I think, agrees that it's not a facility that will ever generate income. But it's and it's been used a couple of times this week by other candidates. The cost of doing business or an attraction for bringing other people into town who do spend money in our community, if you will. Let's get back a little bit to the whole management of the arena. Are we satisfied? Are you satisfied now, or is this going to be in every 1, 2, 3 year deal where we're seem to be shuffling? What, Mr. Lawrenson?
So, I guess from my side, it's still green. The ink is still drying on that contract, so we're still watching them closely, and we do have the ability to opt out and tell them that they are not being successful in managing the property. But so far from what we can see, there is some good steps in place to put some better events on. I mean, we have one coming up in November. We have another one in April that I know of that's coming up, and I look forward to seeing it. And I think it should be a topic that we review with the council and even the community to get feedback as to how they are performing. And if they are not cutting it, we need to look at where we need to transition. But this is a very large company, very popular in the United States. So, all
right. Mayor Homer, your response to the
Well, I guess I'll have to agree. It's to be determined. They haven't even been in for a year. Mm-hmm. But we also have to realize that they manage more than just the arena. And just let it be clear that the arena is not open year-round. It's open just when we have ice in there. And other than that, they open it up for special venues and such. But I believe the ice is only in there approximately 8-9 months out of the year. When those guys are not managing that, they have to manage the tourist park during the summer. And then also the Mech Center out there where we have the softball diamonds and such. So this venue that we have working for us, Oakview, has to manage all them within that contract as well. So we're hoping that they turn out more things that can happen to cut that bottom line, but also that arena is kind of a spotlight for economic development and community development as well. Meaning community development, there's places for kids to have events and stuff at, plus the economic development when there is events there of people buying gas or food at a restaurant or coming to the community and realizing what we have compared to what they have in their own community. So that's really nice. So
All right. Thank you. We're going to kind of stay on the economic business development wavelength, if we would. And we hear it day in and day out on some of our talk shows or call-in shows. People somewhat are a little maybe vague on who controls the flow of business in and out of the community, what the responsibility is of certain people. Who's in charge of bringing a business in, and free enterprise. And just like to ask you first, Mayor Holmer, your thoughts on what the city's role is in bringing business or economic or business development into Thief River Falls.
Oh, that's basically is getting word out of what we're looking at. Right now we have Richard Baker. He's our Community Economic Development Director. And the economic development side of it would be if we need other businesses in town that he can focus on or reach out to get them to come into. The community is great. The biggest hamper that we have in our community for economic development is labor and man force. And I know Richard's doing a job of looking out and trying to find some of these investors that will come in and do the real estate thing so that we get different kinds of housing and the variety of housing that we need in our community to grow. And if we get the people to come in, then people are more apt to have a retail business and keep it going. The other part about retail business nowadays is that there's getting to be less and less mom and pop stores just because of the government regulations that are out there. And I know I've lobbied more than 10 years on government regulation on businesses because I've been a business owner longer. But there is a stranglehold on especially the smaller businesses. Just about have to have one person in charge of keeping in compliance with the government compared to being able to run your business on a normal day-to-day basis. And that gets tough on a community. So what can a city do? Just help promote that business, but and provide the infrastructure for them so that they can hook up and buy your services.
All right. Mike Lawrenson, your response. What do you think the city's role should be in economic and business development?
Again, I would echo a lot of what Brian has said here. We do need to do the best job we possibly can to sell the city to those who are looking to potentially invest, whether it be through building or through opening up a business within the city. It is a challenging and ongoing job that we need to do, whether we approach them at different community events or fairs, if you will, reach out to them. We have done that, today. We are working heavily to do that, but I think that needs to continue and be aggressive. Again, I would agree with the housing situation that we're sitting in. It's very difficult to build businesses here if we have nobody that can fill those seats. And we have many people today that wear more than one hat. They wear their hat at DigiKey or Articat or Sanford, and they put on another hat and do other work throughout the city. And kudos to those that are able to do that, but we do need to find additional staffing where we can. So.
And kind of in response then, we often hear the word tax base or building your base, if you will, and that's where we build then that tax base to ease or help do the things we want to do, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, if I can just respond to that, would be, we talk about our tax base, and tax base comes off of property tax, and that only comes from people that pay property tax. And the community needs to realize that there's a broad percentage, I believe it's right around that 40% or better, is non-property tax paying, being they're a government facility, they're a nonprofit facility, or they're a church. Nothing against any one of them. But as far as the government facilities, we end up being a regional center for them then. And if you look at how much services they use on us and do not pay no property tax, ends up to be a burden on us all too. So that's why we really got to scream the story out to the 300 or 134 representatives and 67 senators we have and say this is why we need to have our local government aid is because, you have all these facilities and they're not paying property tax. So if they paid property tax, we'd be looking pretty good.
All right. Any response to that, Mike?
Yeah, I would say, it's about 267 parcels or property that are not paying any form of property tax in the entire city, and it is very difficult to deal with. I'll give you one very good example. Would be on a federal level, which would be your post office. We redid that entire road and we put new sidewalk on, and every bit of that was a tax burden on the city. That post office is like, we don't need to pay that tax because we are totally exempt, and that's an absolute challenge. And it all
challenge, but also somewhat falls under that cost of doing business or cost of living in a community.
Yes,
correct.
And we don't want to lose our post office by no means.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're, by the way, visiting with the mayoral candidates for the city of Thief River Falls, incumbent Mayor Brian Homer and challenger Ward 3 Alderman Mike Lawrenson joining us, and we're happy to have them in this afternoon. Our forum this afternoon brought to you in part by Tonabells and Thief River Falls Radio. We're just briefly touching on a number of topics. One more recent here that is kind of, it's in limbo. And we'll start with you, Mike. Recreational cannabis. Of course, the state of Minnesota has green-lighted. There is an office that is currently putting together rules and regulations. I know we have a current moratorium somewhat until we get further clarification. But how does that fit into the city's plans, or what do you see moving forward? Do we end up with like we have currently have a municipal liquor store? Does the city get into the business, or do we license? What do you foresee in the future?
So I don't personally feel that the city has a place in selling cannabis. Personally, like a municipal cannabis store. I think that if we do anything, we should license it out and let the public utilize that with other businesses. I mean, there's a challenge going, do we not do anything? Well, if we don't do anything, we are, number one, we're not going to get some of the tax incentives that, of course, the state dangles that little carrot. That we receive a tax incentive for every dollar that is spent from cannabis purchased in the city of Thief River Falls. But in that same breath, if we don't do anything, I can guarantee you we're still going to have some of the strain on our police department from cannabis-related issues that come up. So, number one, I'd say I don't want to put a Thief River Falls cannabis store in. I'd want to let that be public, and that would be my focus on there. So.
All right. And Mayor Homer, your response?
Well, this is one of them things where the state took off on a plane flight and they forgot that they were still building the wings of it. And what happened here was that the state says as of January 1st of this next upcoming year, if the city does not have, back it up. It said that we can have a moratorium up till the first of the year. And we did enact a moratorium for the reasons of getting proper zoning restrictions and licensing in to your city, because if we did not do this, as of January 1st, we just fall back on the state, and it's pretty much a wild, wild west of cannabis in your community. We opted to put the moratorium on there, which in turn allowed us to take a look at an ordinance that respectfully takes a look at where they're located within the city, away from daycares, away from churches, and certain facilities such as that, playgrounds and that kind of nature, and keep them in the business district. With that comes the licensing, and whether we should restrict it to 1, 2, 3, 4. How many licenses should we restrict? We've been talking to the county about it a little bit too. And when it comes to a retail, retail businesses are going to tell you how many convenience stores you have in town, how many gas stations you have in town. Well, I think this is the same here. And one thing about it is we've done some research and such, and it costs approximately $300,000 to start a store up. And this has to be locally funded by your own pocket because, remember, this is still not federally allowed, so there is no banks that allow this. So a person would have to invest his own money in this. So I don't think there's going to be, like I say, a whole bunch of them popping up. Mike is right by saying that if we allow them in our community, and we have some in our community, that tax goes into a state coffer and gets spread, comes back to us in some form of maybe, I can't remember, half of a cent of a cent of a cent or something, but it comes back to us. And in all reality, it says it's going to come back to us, but yet again, on this carrot that money's coming back, they're going to have restriction on how you spend it. And that hasn't been drawn up yet because this plane is flying without engines and a wing, you know. So they're still, while they're trying to adjust the flaps and come up to this January 1st deadline down at the state with the Office of Cannabis and stuff, it's really wild that they've already issued licenses out already for growth and all this other stuff because you have to have growth in order to get the product, the end product, and everything has to be Minnesota grown and whatnot. So, like I said, it's a work in motion, but I think the city's on top of it by putting this moratorium on until the first of the year, and actually the public hearing on that, I believe, is November 17th coming up here.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add or respond to, Mike? Or
Yeah, just again, like I said before, if we don't do it, they're going to be getting it from other areas. In fact, they are already today. They're in areas where they are able to purchase cannabis and bring it into town, and so we are already having to deal with some of the strain, especially in the school system, with marijuana or cannabis being utilized in our school system. So,
and we have to allow one.
We have to allow one
by law.
Yep.
We can't say zero in our community. We cannot put a moratorium on forever.
And that is a state mandate.
That's a state mandate.
That is a state mandate.
And that one does not include a city one. So that's in addition. So it's like going, well, why would we want to put it in anyway?
And if I can answer the city portion of it, maybe some of the drinks that might be able to put into the local municipal liquor store if we follow once they figure out what the rules and license may be. But getting into a store, like I said, just a small store is $300,000, and once you put the product in there, you're going to be upwards close to $1 million. And I don't think this residents really want to put their neck out for that kind of business.
All right, thank you. If I could, a quick grading, if you would, Mayor Homer. If you could give us a grade on the state of the city of Thief River Falls utilities, our streets, our water supply, our electricity. How would you grade how things are currently?
Overall, I'd say a B+. I think some of them are even in that A area where our electricity, 98% is, might even be more than that now, is underground, is pretty secure, stable electricity. And as far as our streets go, when people go into other communities, you got to get off the main drag and try some of their rural or their residential roads once. And I think ours are pretty well maintained. So I'd say around that B+. Is there places in town that could be repaired? Yep, definitely could be. But
Mr. Lawrenson, your thoughts on how you would grade our infrastructure? Infrastructure-wise,
again, like the mayor said, yes, there are a few roads in town that could use some repair, but if you were to drive in off the beaten path in some of the other areas, you'd definitely notice that there is some roads that need some serious repair. But electrical, that is one area where I think we're doing very, very good. From a city standpoint, we are working very heavily with our state group there as well, just to push back on some of the regulations that we're coming down the pipe with that. Water is a bigger concern of ours, especially with the clean water in what we get from the Thief River. That is a big challenge that we need to address with our federal government to make sure that we can get some level of improvement in that area. I would probably give that one a B, if not maybe a C+. So.
All right, thank you. Mike, we'll start with you. Hypothetically, if elected and you could have carte blanche, you can do one thing and everybody's going to agree with you and go along with you, what would be that one thing that you would do as mayor?
My bigger focus, or if I could say magic wand, and it would be there, would be to push hard on additional housing. Once you get the additional housing, you build it, they will come. You get additional people to come in. That'll help the stress of employment. It'll also add to remove the stress from the tax capacity, if you will. And with all of that, there would be a heavy focus on opening communication with the public. So,
Mayor Homer, your if you could have an open book and do one thing for sure, what would that be?
Well, there's a lot of things, but I would say the main one I would do is I would get the payment for getting our water moved up into the Red Lake River so that we get cleaner water, and then also follow up with getting our reservoir cleaned out and dredged out so that we can have some more recreational options. And that would be a 2-for-1 type of thing that goes through.
Yeah. What, Mayor Homer, we just touched on a broad range of vague issues here. Is there an issue that you can see in the future that is going to be taking the council's time that will have to be addressed?
Well, I don't. Well, coming up at this next November meeting, we're going to get the source water protection plan started with our Department of Health, and I'd like have all hands on board, making sure that we can follow up with this plan and make sure that we keep supplying clean and fresh water to our residents of Thief River Falls.
Mr. Lawrence, and your responses, issues that we haven't brought up that maybe come to mind.
I would agree with the water. That's a big concern as well. But back on the electrical, that is a concern that I do have. We are mandated by the state to have a percentage of green renewable energy. And unfortunately, our dam does not qualify for that. And it makes me scratch my head and wonder, why would that not qualify for green energy or renewable energy? But that just makes me concerned about potential corruption in our state government. We need to make sure we are getting decent credit for some of the efforts that we put into this dam and the energy we do generate. That's a big concern, because that, in the end, we get fines or additional fees for our electricity that we use that is not renewable, and that will continue until 2035, if I recall, and we need to push hard on that to correct some of that.
All right. Thank you very much. It's interesting, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, when you have two candidates who are both have a vested interest and already are involved. There's a lot of head shaking and agreements on some issues because you know the background of such. So an opportunity now, if you would, if there's anything the other candidate has said, or if there's an issue that is there something, Mike, you would like to bring in the closing moments here that again has not needs clarification, or something that Mayor Homer said that you don't agree with, or?
I think we're aligned very, very heavily.
Okay.
Again, core reason for me doing this is that I didn't want to come into a city council position saying, I'm totally blind, I don't know anything that I'm doing here, and I'm going to try and seek a mayor position and come unprepared. And so this is why taking the seat where I have for the past few years and take a transition step, if you will.
All right. Mayor Homer.
Other than, we always got to look outside our city for some of this money and funding for all these projects that are putting a burden on our taxpayers, and that's why we keep our taxpayers paying less.
Well, we give you an opportunity here as we wrap up our forum, and hopefully voters will have an opportunity to listen and watch, if not now, later, on our social media and get a little bit better informed before they cast their ballot. But we do give you an opportunity to tell us again what you're all about and to ask for that vote. So as a challenger, Mike, if you'd like to do that, we'll give you a moment to do that.
So one thing, again, I would like to focus on is communication with the public. I would have to say kudos to the school and actually reaching out to the public and actually opening up public meetings and saying, here's where we're at with funds and here's why we're in the situation that we are. I think the city should be doing that as well. We should be calling out and having town halls and collaborating with our taxpayers and sitting down with them and explaining, here's where we're at. Why are we in the position we are? Why exactly did we have to put in these roundabouts? And who paid for them? And how did this all happen? I think an educated individual is a happier individual. They understand what goes into maintaining the city, if you will, and that helps them. It doesn't help the end pocketbook at the end of the day, but it helps them at least understand why. And again, communication would be the key thing. I feel that we've started to lose our trust in the people, and we need to regain that.
All right, thank you. Mayor Homer.
Well, like I've always done in the past, I'm proud to be your mayor and honored to serve in this position over the last 10 years. And I brought millions of dollars from outside the community into projects such as the airport and the water, the West Side diversion and such. And I want to continue to provide that and speak out and be proud of Thief River Falls and tell other people what great things we have going on in our community and why that senator should be voting yes on our project when they have projects in their own community. I just feel that we have great things going, and without a strong leadership that can go out looking for that money, whether it be federal, state, or other agencies that want to partner to help share the burden of any of these costs, I welcome that into that. And if I'm reelected, I will continue my past 10 years. I've been proud to get on KTRF radio every third Thursday of the month to address some of these issues and be open with the people that want to call in on your open line portion of that. So I ask everybody for your vote. You know what you're going to get from me, and I would be proud to do it for another 2 years.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you both. Mike Lawrenson, Ward 3 Alderman, and Mayor Brian Homer, candidates for the Thief River Falls City Mayor position on your November ballot this upcoming November. Gentlemen, thank you both for being civic-minded and putting yourself out there. I know it's a lot of work and a lot of work that is done behind the scenes, and we appreciate that so very much. And thank you for taking time. That is going to wrap up our mayoral forum this afternoon. Again, our forum brought to you in part by Tonnabel's and Thief River Falls Radio. Thank you for joining us.